Okay, so you can see I've got my 3 different sizes that I created. One's for a small head, like my little llama. This might be more for like a regular animal, like a dog, cat, I don't know, elephant, something where the body is more in proportion to the head size. And this is for my person, who's going to be my hero one. And so this is the largest. What I want to show you is how to create like form and sculptural shape. So you're going to need a little extra clay. You can just rip off a small piece of clay at a time. And then what I suggest is close your bag back up, right? So don't leave your bag hanging open when you work. And what I mean by close is I can just twist it and set it on its opening like that. It's totally fine. Okay, for this, I do have some water. We're not gonna use slip. I told you about that. We're not gonna use slip. It's great when we're working with the clay in our studio at school, but for this at-home clay, the slip is actually not quite necessary. It's an extra step. It's just gonna be messy. But instead, we'll just use a touch of water when we're attaching pieces together, which is what we're gonna do. So let me start with my head that's like a person. What you want to think about is you want to think about where you want to put the features, okay? A normal face, surprisingly, your nose is halfway. Your eyes are halfway. So if you look at the top of my head, the very top, and my chin, my eyes are in the middle, halfway. And then halfway down from here is the nose. And halfway down there is usually the bottom lip. So those are the real proportions. You don't have to do this real. You can make it caricaturized. You can do it real. You can do whatever you want. What I'm going to do is I'm going to think about on my little head here, I'm going to think about, is there a place that seems more like the front or back? Doesn't really matter. And then I might just draw myself a few guidelines, like a center line down the middle. And I might draw another center line here. And if I wanted to follow those proportions, I would keep kind of doing that. But I'm going to make mine a little bit different than a normal proportion. A little caricaturized, we would call that. So the features that stand out the most, eyes, nose, mouth, right? We have to figure that out. A face, when you look from the side, it has some curvature and profile to it. So what I want to do for my head is I'm going to actually think about I'm not going to just start drawing eyes on to the clay. That looks terrible, right? I need to actually sculpt this stuff. So instead what I'm going to do is I'm going to think about where the eyes might go, and I'm going to start to push in and create a little bit of an eye socket. Because our eyeballs actually sit inside of a socket. You know, that's what this bone is right here. It's that socket. Now, just because I'm doing this doesn't mean it's going to end up very realistic. I'm just creating more of a sculpture than a pinch pot with a drawing on it, right? So you can see I created a couple of eye sockets. Now, the other thing I want to add is the nose, because the nose sticks out quite a bit. A nose is just a triangle shape. When we think about sculpture, you want to think about what is the basic shape underneath all that detail. And in this case, and for a nose, it's just a triangular shape. So all I'm going to do is create a piece of clay that looks sort of like a triangle. I'm thinking about it sitting on the face, right? So I have a flat side, and then I have the tip of the nose. And I'm actually going to add clay for the nostrils, right? So I'm really just thinking about the center part of the nose. To put it on, you could just use a touch of water. So I just put my finger in the water, touch of water, and then you're going to start to smush this on there, okay? It's a pretty big nose, right? My sister actually has a pretty big nose, but not that big. We can adjust it. Okay, so when you go to put it on, you have to connect it. You have to seal it. So I have to take my finger and seal this stuff up, or use one of your tools. And I think this tool, the one that we created with the beveled cut, that one would work great. Either that beveled edge or actually just the round part. I can start to seal this up like that. So anytime you put the clay on, you have to work at sealing it. All right, Now what I'm going to do is go back and look at my profile and be like, whoa, that's a really big nose. And so I'm going to start to smush it down, or I could rip some of that clay off, right? If I put too much clay on, just take some off. I'm going to work on this a little bit, and then you'll see in a little while, I'll show you the example of kind of what it turned into. But for a nose, start with that triangular shape, create the sockets of the eyes, which gives you some brow bones, right? And then I'm going to create 2 nostrils to make this nose look even better. So I'll take a little bit extra clay. I want to start with 2 pieces of clay that are about the same size. So when you're trying to do things even, like eyeballs, ears, things like that, in this case nostrils, don't just start making one. Get 2 pieces that are the same. And I can tell this one's a little smaller, right? So I'm going to take a little off of this one. If you start making the ear or the eye, then it's hard to remember how much clay you started with, and it gets frustrating. So start with the same pieces, then start to make one of them, and then you make the other. Okay, in this case, I'm going to stick this, and it's still kind of wet from the other one, so it looks funny, but I'm going to stick these on the side of the nose. Looks really funny, right? But that's because we start simple. So now once I've started simple, I'm going to start to blend this in, make it look more like it's part of the nose and not like I've just attached it on. So you can see already this side is starting to look more like a sculpted nose, whereas this one still looks like I just added a ball on. So the idea with sculpture is start simple, start breaking it into shapes, triangles, balls, what does it look like, right? And then you can go back and start to manipulate, smooth, blend, and refine the shape. So I'll be working on this nose a little bit. I'm getting the underneath part. I love doing nostrils because you get to like pick the nose. It's kind of funny. As you can see already, I've got this person started. And if it's too big or too funky, you can take some off. So we got to find a tool to use. Maybe I want to shave some off the nose, change that profile a little bit. And then once you cut something, you usually want to go back and refine or smooth it. Remember, you don't need a ton of water. Don't need a ton of water in this process. But if you feel like you need a little water in your finger to make your finger slide on the surface, you can. And then I would take something like, let's see here. I think I'll take my ribbon tool and I'm going to scoop some clay out of that nostril. And actually, I'm going to use my larger ribbon tool to scoop the clay out. Scoop the clay out. It's hard for me to show you. And then you kind of pick it. And look at, we got a nose. Pretty cool, huh? Okay, so that's kind of basic shapes for a head if you're doing a human head. And then I'm going to show you next like more of an animal head. So you know how we put the nose on solid, you also have the option to do another pinch pot. So for my little no drama llama, I could just start to build the snout with solid clay like we did before. So when I look at the little snout shape, I could create that out of a solid piece of clay and then stick it on just like I did the nose. But I want to show you another way too, which would be to add another little hollow piece. And when we're building in the classroom, we do this because if things are too thick and heavy, they can blow up in the kiln. You're lucky we're not doing that at home. So what do I mean? I could take a really small piece, and it's going to get a little larger for the snout, and I can make a tiny little pinch pot. My thumb's too big, so I'm going to use my pinky to stick it in there. And then I'm going to pinch this little guy out. So the difference is now I'm creating more of a hollow form. I'm going to be lighter, so easier for balancing these bobbleheads, right? So it doesn't tip towards the front all the time. So it's lighter weight, and in the real classroom, this is much better construction because it's less likely to blow up if it has less clay. So now I got this little pinch pot. I've got my head that's gonna sit like this. I can attach my little snout on the front to create the basic shape of that head. So a little bit of water like we did before. And you know, if it doesn't quite fit, don't worry about it. You can make it work. And then I need to do the sealing. So either your finger, or if that's troublesome, just use your tools to seal up those edges. And then once you have it on, you start to refine your shape. So for my little llama guy, what I think makes him really cute is this little curve, right? He kind of has a little curve. So I have to work at that. It doesn't just happen. So I have to sit there and look at it, look at the profile here from the side, and try to make it look curved. And because we're working with 3D, this is tricky. You have to look at it on all directions. So I have to say, what does it look like from the front, from this side, and from that side, from all directions? If you, sometimes when you're sculpting, you find yourself looking at it only from one direction. You work really hard, it looks great, and then you look at it from the front and you're like, oh, it doesn't look good at all, right? So constantly be turning, and that's what that one tool I showed you, the banding wheel, that's the advantage, is that you're constantly turning the project to make sure that you're getting the shape you want from all sides. So you can see I just added his little snout, and I might even make it, you know, more thin or something like that. So these are the basics of just how to create form. And then in the next video, I'll be showing you more about details of, okay, how do I create ears and eyes that look good? Because we're not gonna just sit here and draw the eyes in or carve them. We're actually gonna sculpt them. And so the first step is to get the shape of the head, and then we'll do all those details.